Well, what a week it's been. Joining us now to kind of review what's been going on and look ahead into the future like a crystal ball, Congressman Scott Taylor, 2nd District Republican. That's the Virginia Beach Eastern Shore up through the Peninsula Long District, and former Navy SEAL member and a frequent guest here on the John Fredericks Radio Network, Trucking the Truth across America. Congressman Scott Taylor, good to have you.
Good morning, John. How are you?
Never better. Boy, we got lots to talk about, little time. Let's start with Charlottesville monument statues. Now, you're a Navy SEAL. You served. You were wounded. Many of these statues and monuments commemorating the Civil War, honoring generals, soldiers, and things of that nature. Should they be removed? Should all these be removed from Virginia? What do you think?
No, I'm not for that. I think if I could paraphrase LeVar Stoney, mayor of Richmond, a couple months ago, obviously before the politics hit, when he said, let's leave the statues, but let's teach the context. I'm for building, not tearing down. So if we want to put some more statues up, cool. Let's do that. Let's teach the context of what's there now. When does it end? I'm not in favor of that. Some of these statues I'd like to learn more about. I've probably passed by them 1,000 times and haven't even thought about it. So I'm not for the removal of statues. I think we have a very imperfect and layered history, and we should teach that. And as you said, a lot of these monuments are to the war dead, which is sacred. And as we know now, those Confederate soldiers have become U.S. soldiers as well too by law. And so I'm not for it at all.
Well, I think you're spot on with this. And of course, as often happens in this sort of debate, the far left takes it to an extreme. Now they're talking about whitewashing the Confederate etching on Stone Mountain. They're talking about blowing up Mount Rushmore. They want to get rid of Jefferson and Washington statues, change the names of streets, change the names of high schools, and
military bases.
Military bases.
I mean, it's just. Where does it end?
That's the thing. Where does it? I do Virginia Military Institute football, Scott, as you know, and if you go to VMI campus in Lexington, there's a huge, beautiful statue of Stonewall Jackson. And that statue has nothing to do with the Confederacy. That's one of the generals that they teach at VMI, his tactics. It's got nothing to do with the Confederacy. So
that's the thing. And some of these folks they're trying to take down too were they did things later in life. I mean, these are people who are complex and have good and bad with them, and you just have to understand the context. And to judge people from generations and generations and centuries ago by the context of the day is ridiculous. And quite frankly, my nephew's at UVA, and you've even seen some teachers or professors who have come out against taking Jefferson down. That's incredible. That is their job to teach that damn context. And I want my nephew to have rigorous academic learning there, not just to be whitewashed over history. I want him context taught. Well,
you're right. And when you look at Robert E. Lee, what people forget, we talked about this a little bit on Friday, is to remember those that understand history in the Civil War. At the end of the Civil War, many of Lee's lieutenants wanted to continue fighting as a guerrilla warfare, which would have went on forever and caused more deaths. And Lee said, no, we're done. War's over. Lay down your arms. We're not going to do that. So, look, there's good and bad with everything, but you can't erase history. So I'm 100% agreement with your position on that. Monday.
And even if you look now, John, just really quick, you look around the world now, exactly what you just said, where there are lingering insurgencies in many countries.
That's right.
That have gone on for decades and decades, and that did not happen here because of men like Lee and because of other folks who came together in reconciliation. And that history should be taught. And quite frankly, as ugly as it is, we should understand that so that we don't repeat it.
Absolutely. Let's go to the president's speech on Monday, re-engaging Afghanistan, not mentioning the new troop levels, but we think we've heard inside the White House, it looks like the start of additional troops in there will be 3,900. Still no AUMF, still no objectives. Nobody knows what any of this means. The president campaigned, as you know, Congressman Taylor, on getting out of these wars. What is your position on it?
Okay, so let me preface this by saying I think that the president's gut feeling, and I think that his skepticism of moving forward with Afghanistan is warranted, and I think that will serve him well. There are some complexities there. There is some stability issues. Obviously, we want the area stable. I'm not for nation building, but there are some realities that he understands now that he probably didn't when he was before office in the campaign. What I will say is I like the ability for the troops to deal with things with conditions on the ground, with rules of engagement. I like engaging other countries around there, India, Pakistan. He didn't mention Russia and China, but you can bet Russia is supporting the Taliban in some parts. China's in there as well too. Not necessarily the Taliban, but they're in there for their own selfish economic plays. But I think that engaging them is important to try to have an off ramp in Afghanistan.
Right.
That being said, as you very well know, I want an AUMF, and I've been very vocal about having the third president working off a 16-year-old AUMF that's, I believe, no longer applicable today.
Right.
So I think Congress has to debate it, has to talk up. Now that we have input from the administration, we should take that up and debate it.
But your leader, Speaker Paul Ryan, has squashed any attempts to debate this. Barbara Lee had got it through appropriations. As you know, you're on the appropriations committee.
Well, John, honestly,
and then it got squashed in rules.
Congressman Stewart and myself who actually pushed that through the appropriations thing.
Right.
So you can imagine I've had a conversation. That wasn't going to get passed if it wasn't for us that stood up veterans who were like, enough is enough, we need to do this. And then that changed the whole mood I was in that hearing, obviously. It changed the whole mood of the hearing, and it actually passed. Barbara Lee didn't think it was going to get passed. So I've had conversations with the speaker about this specific thing, and I told him, I said, this is something that I believe very passionately that needs to happen. He basically said, I don't believe it should happen during the appropriations process through that means, which I'm not necessarily in disagreement with, but what he said was he wants to have input from the administration on what they see. I think that's a fair point, but it also doesn't alleviate us, now that we have input from the administration, from taking this up and having the debate in Congress.
So I have no confidence that the speaker is ever going to let this get debated, because I think what he said about appropriations is just mumbo jumbo, right? He could have simply let the thing go through. He deep sixed it at midnight when it went to rules, basically, which, as you know, is killing fields for anything the speaker doesn't want. So what happens now? I mean, how do you get this back on the radar screen here?
So from my perspective is this, it wasn't just the speaker who had an issue with the appropriations. There were definitely some other folks as well, including some veterans who were like, hey, we got to do this not through the appropriation process. But, I got to take him at his word, and with a grain of salt. He said to me right to my face, we need to have input from the administration, and then we can, be in the best position to debate this, basically. Because let's be fair, of course, you want the debate to be some Democrats will just bring Trump into it, and that may scuttle dealing with the bigger issue, which is our military footprint around the world and where we're going as a country. So he wants to be, according to him, in the best position legislatively. He wants to have input from the administration. So I'm just taking him at his word, but I can tell you, John, that if it doesn't come up, I will be right there again, very vocal, saying let's bring this up. So once I want to see movement. I'll have a conversation with him when we get back into the into session, because I can tell you that there's probably a majority of Congress, Democrats and Republicans, who want an AUMF.
Right.
I mean, I don't think the way to go the discharge position, or a discharge petition, excuse me. But I bet if you did that, you'd probably get it on the floor.
All right. Well, look, I'm going to go with you, and I'm going to believe what you're saying, that we are going to get a debate on this, and that Paul Ryan is going to allow it.
Hey, look, as you know, I don't control that. I'm just taking the speaker at his word.
But I'm going to go with you.
What he said to me.
But I mean, we've been very critical of the speaker, and I don't trust him. And the problem is with this AUMF is the only thing you're asking for is to have a debate. Nobody's asking for a decision on it until we have a debate. It's just like, let's just have a debate. And then people can decide, up or down. And this also makes the administration have to come to Congress and lay out their case in order to get the green vote, right?
Agree.
So it's just a debate.
Look, this district, as you very well know, more military and veterans than any congressional district in the nation. And less than 1% of the nation has been shouldering this burden for 16 years. So I think Congress can have the guts to just simply have a debate when you think about the sacrifice that military members and their families and veterans have done for this country. I think that we should lead on that, and we owe it to them, and we owe it to this nation.
I think you're 100% right. Scott, I want to talk for a minute about the air traffic control bill, which basically takes the role of air traffic control out of government hands, and it puts it in kind of a public-private partnership. This is a move that airlines and controllers back, and those like me that want to see the government get out of some of this stuff, it seems to make sense. Some people in Congress are telling me this is going to allow for desperately needed upgrades to make our system compliant with the 21st century. And right now, get this, right now, Scott Taylor, I'm told that air traffic controllers actually utilize slips of paper to track plane traffic, which is crazy. This is also going to reduce the role of government, but it's going to keep the FAA role in oversight of safety, which is what it ought to be. And it's kind of stalled in Congress now. This seems to me to be a no-brainer. Why is it stalled?
So, to be fair, John, I like the concept of it, but I need to learn more because I am hearing from other sides as well, too, specifically the pilots themselves who have a fear of the control of that private entity being mostly in the hands of, big airlines, basically. And obviously, if you could think of scenarios where they might, push traffic more towards theirs for economic reasons than other areas. I'm not 100% on either side yet. I need to learn and I need to get more information. I actually had a conversation via text with the whip 2 days ago that talked about that specifically. So I just want to hear all the other side's concerns as well too. But obviously, I like more private sector and not government because I know that they can run it in a more efficient way. But I think that obviously devils are in the details, so we need to make sure that there isn't the ability for a couple private companies to sort of control everything. The big. So again, I'm not ready to say yay or nay on it. I need to get more information on it, but I'm happy to come on your show once I've made my decision.
All right, look, I'm going to appreciate that. I got also the White House sent me a document from General Mattis, Secretary of Defense, who was saying that this is the right thing to do. So militarily, it seems he seems to be fine with it. But, to me, this is one of those things that the administration, Scott Taylor, is attempting to do that makes a lot of sense. It doesn't get a lot of play in the media because it's not a sexy item, if you will. And it's a lot more fun for the media to blast Trump about saying something at a shutdown in his rally. But I think this is a move in the right direction. And it's kind of the cornerstone of the Trump administration, which is they're going to try to make government more efficient. And hopefully this is a start. So we're going to keep following up on it. And I hope you'll give this, as always, Scott, your full attention, right?
Sure. And I am. And like I said, I got to look at it. I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be on the side of the administration. I know that they want this. Again, I think that I don't know what the language, that's the thing. Where in the language would it let a couple private companies sort of have a monopoly over that? If it doesn't, cool, and then I'm in. I'm on board. But I need to make sure that I'm completely aware of the language.
Okay, so it's a matter of what the language is, but it sounds like what you're saying that you're for this
the concept
in
yes,
concept,
absolutely,
and just get the details so that it makes sense. All right, appreciate that. Let's get to the president's edict and directive over the weekend to General Mattis. Again, back to Mattis saying that transgenders will not be allowed to serve in the military going forward, and that he's going to leave it up to General Mattis to decide for those that are in the military now that are transgender people, whether or not they get kicked out. How do you stand on this?
I'm a little bit split, and let me say the first thing is I voted with the Hartzler Amendment to not fund the surgeries. I think Vicky Hartzler, she was doing it more for sort of a social conservative reason. My reasons, which aligned with hers, were because of readiness, which I think is where General Mattis is. Are you deployable? Are you medically? Are you physically? Are you psychologically ready to go? And if you come into the military as an enlisted person, and then you elect to get reassignment surgery that puts you out of commission for almost a year, and then ongoing hormones that could potentially stop you and preclude you from serving where you should have been otherwise. I don't think that's fair to the person on your left or your right. I think that's wrong. It's not good for readiness. So I don't agree with that. That being said, I know that he's going to have to make some decisions on the folks who are serving now. And if anyone is medically, physically, psychologically good to go, I think they should be able to serve. So I'm fine with that. So I guess I would split down the middle there in terms of if you're good to go medically, physically, psychologically, and you meet every other standard necessary, okay, cool. If not, I don't think you should be able to come in and just get surgery for reassignment surgery, because clearly you're not ready. So that's where I'm at. I would, as I imagine General Mattis will, I would lean on the side, obviously, of pretty heavily on readiness, because the reality is the military is there. It's supposed to be a disciplined unit to be able to be lethal, and it's not a social experiment.
Right. So you want the decision to be made on, is any transgender in question ready and deployable, and can they serve and meet all the requirements, rather than the whole social aspect of it?
That's correct. It shouldn't even be talked about. You know what I mean? If you're able to go into a unit and you're ready to go, okay, that's one thing. Obviously, if you don't know what gender you are, you haven't had the surgery to have that, then you're not. And that is the opposite of readiness. Mm-hmm. So I don't support that.
And you're not in favor of, in any circumstances, the military paying for sex change operations?
That's correct. I'm not in favor of that.
Right. That doesn't make any sense. All right. I got another couple minutes. Very quickly, I want to get to the debt ceiling. We're going to have to do something. The president's saying at a rally he might risk a shutdown over his wall and appropriations. Then there's other people like me thinking that the best thing to do right now is just get a clean bill. Just get a clean bill, raise the caps, as painful as it is. Nobody wants to see the debt go up, but we've done this for 12 consecutive times. And if we can do that, we can clear a path towards tax reform in a big way. Are you in favor or not of raising the debt again to meet the caps and avoid a government shutdown without anything attached to it? Are you in favor of a clean bill?
Are you saying not the wall, not having the wall in there?
I think,
because I'm actually in favor of that. I mean,
the wall.
Two things. One, I think, you're right. We keep doing this over and over again, and we have to look about if we're going to be able on the back end to be able to get savings for taxpayers by doing it the clean way, then I'm in favor of it. Now, on the wall piece, because that's going to be part of it as well too, where the Dems are threatening, and the president too as well with the government shutdown. I don't think government shutdown is good for anyone, but I think the wall, the funding there that's in the bill now is absolutely needed. I think we were on the show as well too. I went to 4 different places down at the border and in different areas. They need either technology, people, or wall fencing, and the monies that are in the bill that would be going towards what the president wants in the wall are actually practically needed. They're absolutely needed. McAllen, Texas needs wall that has some levee in it, which is, helps with obviously immigration, but also the defending against flooding there as well too. San Diego needs secondary fencing because they just come with a sawzall and cut through and go right through it. That's needed. And that's what the money's in this, the wall thing is going to be the big issue, John. I think that you're going to, the political issue, but the reality is, the monies that are there now for the wall that the president wants are needed, and we should fund it.
All right. So, all the Democrats are going to be opposed to that funding, or the majority of them, and there's going to be some Republicans opposed to that funding. So if push comes to shove, what are you willing to do? In terms of what? I don't understand. Well, if
to shut down the government,
yeah,
you mean?
Yes.
I don't think it's the right thing to do to shut down the government. Just don't. So I don't know. I don't know how it's going to play. It's difficult for me to answer that question. But I don't think shutting down the government is the right thing to do.
All right. So you want funding for the wall, and you don't want to shut the government down.
Yeah, and honestly, I'd like to see communicatively. I'd like to see Republicans speaking about what I just said. The wall. Everybody thinks, and the president too. I mean, the president should. I hope that he changes his words as well too to talk about. Look, the monies that are in here for this wall are needed. They're absolutely needed. It's not. I know there's a campaign thing there, and he wants to go that direction, and the Dems do too. They, because they want to be opposed to him and be opposed to it. But the reality is, functionally, practically, that monies that are there now for the wall, we need them. We need them on the border down there.
Okay, we're out of time. I want to thank Republican Congressman Scott Taylor for being with us, 2nd District, Virginia, former Navy SEAL. Scott, as always, we appreciate your honesty. We appreciate your being on and making yourself available to us. Scott, serving on the Appropriations
Always a pleasure. Thanks,
Committee.
John.
Thank you. More information, go to scotttaylor.us. This is the John Fredericks Radio Network. We'll be right back.